Welcome all, past presidents, past chairs, GB members, and all my dear colleagues. It's lovely to see a good number of you gathered here today. A very warm welcome to all the members of Ahmedabad, Chennai, Indore, Kanpur, Ludhiana, and Mumbai. Welcome to the very first multi-chapter Flow event of this year. I'm Jayashree Ravi, Chairperson of Flow Chennai chapter. Truly a pleasure to have you all here. Lubaina Sharpurwala, Chairperson Flow Mumbai, Radhika Gupta, Chairperson Flow Ludhiana, Kanika Vaid, Chairperson Flow Kanpur, Neetu Kohli, Chairperson Flow Indore, Nandita Manshaw, Chairperson Flow Ahmedabad. We have been super excited and we're counting down the days to today's program. It has been wonderful to put together this exceptional event. I must say, the whole experience has been rather unique. We've gotten to know each other a little bit better. To organize this program over umpteen phone calls and Zoom meetings was rather tedious, but I wouldn't change a thing about it. A special thank you to Radhika Gupta for initiating this multi chapter event. We are ever so grateful. Flow has been promoting entrepreneurship and professional excellence among women through workshops, seminars, conferences, training, and capacity building programs. For those of you who are new to Flow, Flow was established in 1983 as a division of the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, FICCI, which is the apex body of industry and commerce in India. The objective of Flow is to encourage and facilitate women to showcase their talents, skills, experiences, and energies across sectors and verticals of the economy for a truly inclusive economic growth trajectory. The aim is to promote economic empowerment and equal opportunities for women. In short, Flow is women transforming India through industry, trade, and innovation. Now, coming back to this event, uh,
Can we ask everyone to mute, please? I think there's someone on mic is on.
sorry about that. Now, coming back to this event, Mr. Kabir Bedi needs no introduction. He is known not only in Indian cinema, but is an actor of international acclaim. Today, we celebrate him, his career, and the art he has offered us through his beautifully penned autobiography, Stories I Must Tell. It is the story of a middle class boy from Delhi whose career now spans the globe, the tale of how he survived the roller coaster journey of the making, unmaking, and remaking of him as a person. I now call upon Radhika Gupta to formally introduce our guest for the day.
Good evening, everyone. He's introverted media shy, multifaceted, multidimensional, supremely talented. Our guest today is definitely much more. He's the quintessential game changer and has made a successful transition into Hollywood. He has definitely had a roller coaster ride at the movies, but has always emerged victorious. Impeccable comic timing, superstar screen presence on celluloid. He's the charming superstar who wears his heart on his sleeve. He's one of the most versatile, one of the most bankable, one of the finest actors in the movie industry. He has grown from strength to strength on and off screen. Kabir Bedi is known worldwide for his roles in The Bold and the Beautiful, the James Bond movie, Octopussy, the European series, Sandokan, his Bollywood blockbuster, Khoon Bhari Maang. He has always done many films in television series in Europe, India, and Hollywood. His credits include starring with Michelle Caine in Ashtini and Roddy McDowell in The Thief of Baghdad, and playing the title role in the Italian film The Black Pirate on the American television. He has acted in Highlander, Murder She Wrote, Magnum, Dynasty, and many more HBO miniseries. On stage, he has starred in John Murrell's Taj at the Luminato Festival in Canada and MMK, the Far Pavilion in London West End. In India, he has done close to 70 Bollywood movies, famously starring with Rekha in Khoon Bhari Maang. Kabir Ji currently lives with his wife Parveen Dosanjh, a producer in Juhu, Mumbai. He is writing his next book and continues to act and is a commentator on television. He voices ad films and documentaries and travels regularly to his 3 favorite cities in the world, Rome, London, and Los Angeles. That's what we know about him. But there is much more that we have to know. So let's get him to know him. Now, may I please call upon Mrs. Lubaina Shapurwala, Chairperson Mumbai, and Mrs. Kanika Ved, Chairperson Kanpur, to take this program forward. Over to you, girls.
Thank you, Radhika. And a very warm welcome to our guest. He's very special to all of us. Good afternoon, Mr. Bedi.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I want to
yes.
thank Jayashree for her introducing the session and Radhika for her wonderful welcome. And I also thank Kanika and Lubaina and all of you who are going to be grilling me and talking to me. I look forward to the session.
All right, welcome on board with us. From Mr. Bedi, from material to mortal to spiritual, there are many worlds in the canvas that you have painted.
Right.
As your gaze turns outwards and inwards, we are led to a fascinating interplay of words, images, anecdotes, and people. What prompted you to write this book and why now? And also, very interestingly, you have taken a non-linear form to pen down your life. What led you to that?
There's many questions there in one, but I'd come to a point where I just had to tell my story. I knew I had a story to tell. I knew it was one hell of a story to tell. I just wasn't sure how. And it took me a while to figure out how I was going to tell it. Because as you mentioned, I didn't like the linear form. I was born in this place, then I went to school here, then I went to college here. I started a few of those and I thought, nobody's interested. I wouldn't be interested in reading a book like this. I wanted a book that I would like to read, that I would find unputdownable. And so I figured out that I could tell my book in a series of short stories that overlapped in time, perhaps, different lengths, but it gave me the freedom then to go back and forth in time, according to the needs of each story, and put in whatever flashbacks were relevant to that story and tell the backstory, and then jump ahead to the next story. So I had the freedom of creating a kind of montage, free-flowing montage, where I interrelated facts in the most interesting way possible. So it would be an interesting book. And I hope readers found it interesting.
Yeah, that's the most interesting part. Wherever you want, you can leave the book and then again grab it, again start with it. That's interesting.
That was my intention, that you should not be able to think, I've finished one chapter, that's the end of it. I want you to expect more, want more. It should be a page turner. It should be unputdownable. So if you put it down, I hope you return to the feeling of I've got to continue this book, because that's what I was hoping for, and that's what every writer hopes for. But given the reception I've got, I think it's touched many people and held many people, and so I'm very gratified.
I'll take the next question, Ms. Bedi, but I must share with you that while I was reading the book, when I was researching, it was almost like a Tarantino movie. Because the way you've juxtaposed the chapters, I almost felt, and you kind of bring us into the room when you're actually talking about each story. And that's where I felt that I was almost present with the kind of dialogues. You actually reiterated everything that happened. Coming to my question, there was a time when Ben Kingsley had to change his name from Krishna Banji to Ben Kingsley to be taken seriously and actually get roles. In a recent conversation with Priyanka Chopra, you actually touched upon the point that one has to remain ethnically ambiguous even today. When you made your foray into Hollywood, there were such few roles for Asians, even less for Indians. So how did you get your break into both Hollywood and European cinema? If you could touch upon that, please.
Gladly. You've raised an interesting point here that, the way that I wrote this film. It's a bit like a Tarantino film because you flash back and forth. The story of my early days in Delhi, then coming to Mumbai, advertising, theater, film. How did I get my entry into Europe and Hollywood? With Europe, I won't say I lucked out, but I got a much easier entry because they were looking for the right actor. I had the great good fortune of actually resembling the character that the original writer of the book had written. Then they invited me to Rome at my cost to do an audition. I didn't balk at it. I thought it might open many doors. So I went at my cost, did the audition, aced it. And that made me an instant star in Europe. So in Europe, I started at the top. Yeah. In Hollywood, I had to, on the contrary, start at the bottom. Hollywood didn't care what happens outside Hollywood. It's such an insular city, such an insular place. They don't care what happens in New York, forget Europe. The fact that I was a star in Europe didn't matter to them. I still had to audition for every role. I still had to try and find roles. Because the problem in those days, the biggest problem was they weren't writing roles for Indians. And so I said, the way I deal with this is by becoming the foreigner. I'm not, as Priyanka Chopra said, ethnically ambiguous. Yes. I said, let me play the foreigner. I told my agent, I said, doesn't matter what the role is. If it's a foreigner, put me up for it. And it worked. I played a Tuareg tribesman in my role with Michael Caine. I played a Moroccan prince in The Bold and Beautiful. It was only in Octopussy, the Bond film,
Octopussy, yes,
where I was actually cast as an Indian and a Sikh, which is what I am. And therefore, that is the only time I got cast correctly in Hollywood. Otherwise, I was playing Germans, I was playing Russians, I was playing all kinds of foreign characters, because the way Hollywood functioned in those days, it was society very inward looking. So any foreigner looking like me could be Lebanese, Arab, Italian, South American, French, anything. And I cashed in on that, So that's how I got into Hollywood, though it was a much harder road for me than it was in Europe. And Europe has been my strength throughout, because whenever things were not going well in Hollywood, Italy would come to my rescue. And I had a whole new salvation coming from the work that I did with the Italians. And my relationship with them has always been very, very special. In fact, it was during my Hollywood years that I ended up doing my most successful Bollywood film. I was shooting in Hawaii with Tom Selleck for Magnum PI. And I got this call from Rakesh Roshan saying, Kabir, I've got a film for you. I said, what happened? All the Bollywood actors on strike, you're calling me in Honolulu, Hawaii? I said, no, the thing is, Kabir, I've got a film where the hero turns into the villain. And no hero is willing to do this because they don't want to be villains. And if I cast a villain, there'll be no surprise in the film. You're the only one who can convincingly play a hero and a villain together and people will believe it. So that's what led to my getting Khoon Bhari Mang. So that also came in the middle of my Hollywood years. And I came back, did it, became my most successful Bollywood film. Then I went back to Hollywood. So my career has been on 3 continents. And that's how I've had to juggle it. It's not been easy. It's not been easy because how do you remain current in 3 film industries at the same time?
Yeah.
Where do you base yourself? If you base yourself in Bombay, Europe forgets you, Hollywood forgets you. In Hollywood, Europe forgets you, Bombay forgets you. So it's a tightrope act to try and figure out how to be there. And remember, this was at a time when social media did not exist, emails did not exist, mobile phones did not exist. Today, you can seem to be everywhere at once because of social media. Those days, unless you're physically present and the press was writing about you in those places, you were absent. So how to remain present in all 3 continents while remaining only in one or being only in one was quite an art.
all I can say is that we're very lucky that we have you on our continent.
Continent, yes. This is where I wanted to be. This is what
Yes.
the people I care about the most in the world,
Yes.
and this is where I choose to live. Even when I went abroad, I knew I would not be going forever. I knew I'd be coming back. India
We're
is
lucky. We're lucky to have you back, Mr. Bedi.
Thank you. My heart and soul
Kanika,
belong here.
the next question is yours.
Yeah, so you, Mr. Bedi, you just now said you have done a number of productions in India, around 60 movies in India. In America, you did Bold and the Beautiful, which was almost telecasted for a year. In Europe, you did Sandokan. So this
And
kind
many
of
more.
exposure, you said, gives you a lot of confidence and a lot of contacts, but definitely does take away something from you. Because, you know, they say heavy is the head that wears the crown. So what's your take on that?
Well, the crown I've worn has always been a crown of thorns. It's always had a sharp, barbed edge to it, because I've seen great success, but I've also seen the pitfalls of that success. I have, I wouldn't say it's taken away from me. It's all added to my experience. The great, extraordinary successes I saw in Europe, the extraordinary setbacks that I faced, personal and professional, in Hollywood, including bankruptcy in Hollywood towards the later years. All that's part of the fabric of life. In the end, you rise from the ashes, you resurrect your life, your career, and you come out a stronger person. So it takes away things at the time, but in the end, at the end of the day, you feel stronger, you feel you've achieved more, you feel you've faced the worst. Now, what can ever go wrong?
Yeah, so true. No, but you have achieved so much. The story tells everything. You have all in one plate.
Yeah, it's a very complex story. It's a very layered story because it's not just about my professional successes. It's also about my relationships of wonderful women that I loved and lost, dealing with the suicide of my son, dealing with exploring my beliefs, my incredible parents' lives that inspired me in so many ways, exceptional parents, even if they were not my parents. People who moved from revolution to religion. There's a lot of dimensions to the story, as you must have read in my book. And I think I can talk about it in general terms, but to really understand and enjoy my story, you have to read it. You have to read it.
Absolutely.
Because it's been, and I've written it in a style that's very, very colloquial. It's as though I'm talking to you. There's not a single word in the whole book where you have to go to look in a dictionary to find out what it was. It's the language you speak, the language I'm speaking right now. So it's almost you're hearing my voice throughout the book. I wanted it to be accessible. I wanted people to feel they were part of a conversation with me, listening to me going through my life. And like Lubera mentioned, I wanted people to get the feeling of being in the same room with me, hearing the conversation. Even you mentioned that, Kanika. It's of actually just being there, feeling each dramatic scene with me, my elation, my suffering, almost as though you're a fly on the wall watching these scenes.
Absolutely.
And that's what I wanted to do, because I felt it was more dramatic that way, it was more interesting that way. And being a person from film who's always dealing in scenes that we shoot, I wanted to do this in scenes, not sequential scenes from beginning to end, but whenever there was an opportunity to flesh out a scene in human terms, I did it. And I feel that makes it very involving.
That makes the book very interesting. You actually feel it, you are there.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to ask you is, you have been called the debonair of the industry. As a teenager myself, I had a number of photographs which could make one's jaw drop, Kabir.
Really?
What made you choose this special picture here?
After my big success in Italy, I came and lived in London. And I had a beautiful home in London overlooking the River Thames. And I wanted to get some pictures taken to just to have some good pictures of me. Everyone takes pictures of you. You never see them. They get printed in the press, etc. They're not part of your collection. I'm going to have some pictures of my own collection. So there was a photographer in those days called Terry O'Neill. He was the equivalent of what Annie Leibovitz is today. Photographs all the biggest stars in Hollywood, etc. This man was called Terry O'Neill. He photographed Elton John. He photographed the Beatles. He photographed British royalty. Photographed all the biggest celebrities. And he was a highly sought after man. I persuaded him to take my picture. And he took these pictures. And he took a lot of pictures of me. We had a whole afternoon session. And at the end of it, when he showed me the pictures, he said, Kabir, this one is I've taken a lot of pictures. This one really jumps out at me. And I thought, if Terry O'Neill says that, it's got to be special. And I kept it. And I always kept it with me, no matter how many cities I shifted. It remained with me. When I came back here, and I was deciding which picture to use for the book, it's my wife Parveen that said, that's the best picture ever taken of you. You have to use it. And I took her advice, and it became the cover of the book.
Must compliment your wife has a good choice. Very good choice.
She chose me. Hello, she has a good choice.
There was a pun intended there, Mr.
Yes.
Bedi.
Pun intended, definitely.
Absolutely. Shall I go on with my next question?
Please.
You mentioned in an interview earlier this year that little things can have enormous consequences. I'm referring to your magical encounter with the Beatles.
Right.
When you worked as a freelance reporter with All India Radio in Delhi, and then advertising and theatre in Mumbai, and then finally into the world of cinema. Could you kind of tell us about your journey from the Beatles to how you managed the interview and what the manager actually told you, and you went off to meet the Beatles instead of the manager. So that whole story all the way from there to how you landed in cinema.
I'm not going to tell you all the beautiful nuggets and stories of my book, but I will tell you
we
a
have
little
a
about
lot
this
of
one.
members who have your book already. We
Right.
have them, so they'll all hold it up and share it to you.
I'll certainly share this story with you. You see, I was freelancing with All India Radio because at that time, because of my parents' idealistic beliefs, etc., there was no money in the bank, and I had to work my way through college. So even though I got into St. Stephen's, I had to find ways to pay for it. So freelancing with radio is one of the ways I did it. And when I heard the Beatles were coming into town, I thought, my God, I was their biggest fan in the world. I knew everything about them. And I was determined to get to them. So I went to my manager and said, please let me interview the Beatles. They said, how can you? The whole Delhi press calls after them. I said, give me a tape recorder, give me the badge, I'll go. So they gave me the tape recorder, gave me the badge. I went there, went and waited in the lobby. And I knew I had to find their manager, Brian Epstein. Everyone was looking for the Beatles. I was looking for their manager. And I recognized him because I had seen his pictures. He came into the lobby. I followed him to the exit where he went for his car. And I pressured him. I said, sir, the government have already scheduled an interview with the Beatles. The government would be very offended if they didn't. He said, how dare they? The boys will not give an interview to anybody. And I said, sir, it's a government matter. And I knew government was a sensitive word because they'd just come from Philippines, but they'd have trouble with the government. And they'd be manhandled at the airport. And I knew this government word would be a vulnerability for them. So I kept saying, sir, I'm the biggest fan. I don't want to get into trouble with the government, sir. Anyway, eventually he said, come and see me. So at the time I went to see him, he obviously wasn't well. And he said, oh God, I said, sir, the interview is scheduled. He said, I can't do this now. And he took me by the arm and he walked me across the length of the Oberoi, the floor of the Oberoi, to the other end of the floor, and knocked on the door and told the Beatles, do me a favor, boys, give this guy an interview. And there I was with the Beatles. It was one of those magical moments for me because the Beatles weren't just great musicians. They represented the whole of the 60s. Everything that the 60s meant to us, the change of an age, the most exciting decade of the 20th century. Social mores were changing. The counterculture had developed in America. People were protesting the Vietnam War. The pill had been invented and gave people sexual freedom. Hippies were having parades and psychedelic festivals. And there was rebellion in the air, and the Beatles symbolized it all to us. So to be there was not
was
just
a
to be with
movement
great
almost.
musicians, it was like to be with symbols of the age in which we lived. And what I said to them and what they said to me, beautiful interview. I won't get into that, read the book for that. But
Yes.
that interview was a turning point in my life because All India Radio treated it so badly, and I won't get into detail why, but they treated it so badly that I decided I was not going to work for these people anymore. And that became a turning point in my life. And I had to think, what do I want to do in life?
Yeah.
And Delhi was a city I'd grown up in. All my friends were there. And I loved the city. I knew everything about it historically. I was a student of history. But I realized that what I wanted to do was to do film. I wanted to be a director at that time. And the only way to be a director was to come to Mumbai, because Bombay in those days, because that was where films were made.
Mm.
And I'd learned something about film because I'd done little work with television in Delhi. But I came to Bombay and joined advertising. I joined Lintas, and then I was in Ogilvy and Mather, in those days known as Benson's. And for 5 years, I made ad films. And I made a lot of ad films. My greatest fortune was that Alec Padamsee was my boss in Lintas. And Alec Padamsee was the guru of Bombay theatre.
Yeah.
So learning
Yeah.
that I was an actor, and I'd acted in college, in school, etc. He cast me in the lead of his play called Tughlaq, which is Girish Karnad's first play in English.
Mm.
And the success of that play, the spectacular success of that play, led to my getting Bollywood offers. And because Bollywood offered me, made me a name, when the Italians came into town looking for actors, I was a name. So they heard of me and they met me, and things flowed from there. So this is cutting out all the wonderful stories along the way. But in essence, that's what happened.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm going to hand over to Nandita now and Jayashree to take over the next set of questions.
Okay.
Welcome.
Welcome, Nandita and Jayashree.
Hello, Mr. Bedi. Good evening.
Hi.
Hi. It's a very emotional journey depicted in your book.
It
How
is.
honest do you think you have been during penning these down in your stories? How challenging was it to become this candid and vulnerable on paper?
Not easy, but necessary. I've called it the emotional journey of an actor because, like I said, I can give you an overview. I went here, I did this, I came to Bombay, and from there I went to Europe, Hollywood, etc. But you don't go through the drama of what it took for a boy from Delhi to become an international star. The drama of that is in the book, is in the emotions that I went through, the decisions, the dilemmas that I faced, the crises that I faced, the success that I enjoyed, all that was there. It's also an exploration of my relationships, of people that I knew and loved, whether they were the women in my life or even my son. It was, and the rest of my family. The telling of it had to be honest, because when I decided to write this book, I decided I would be as honest as I could and let the chips fall where they may. If people thought, oh, well, he went bankrupt in Bollywood, well, in Hollywood, let them think that. It happened to my life. It's part of the fabric of my life. It's what made me. It's what I rose from. It's what I overcame. But what it is to experience that, the humiliation of something like that, is something I can only share with you and let you feel that. And it was important for me to speak of this in an authentic voice, in a voice that was honest and believable, because I have not written this book as a vendetta against anybody with a vicious knife out for anybody. I've looked at all of us in our younger selves with more compassionate eyes, and yet I have not spared myself of my weaknesses. I have not spared their weaknesses either. I've shared it all. And I believe that's why it resonates with a lot of people. A lot of people say they've been touched by the book. They've been moved to tears at places in the book. And even friends that have known me for years say, so many things in this book have surprised us, Kabir. We knew this, but we didn't know this about you. Mm-hmm. And that is also good, because going through life, you get a lot of praise, but you also get a lot of criticism. And somewhere I believe that truth will always out. But I discovered the truth doesn't always out. Sometimes you have to state it. Sometimes you have to put down, no, that wasn't how it happened. This is what happened. And this is how I saw it. And this is my truth. And I hope that what I'm saying resonates with you. That's the feeling with which I set out. And I put a sticker on top of my computer which said, don't be afraid to be vulnerable, which is a hard thing for a man because we have this macho pride and we don't want to show our weakness, etc. We don't want to show our emotion.
Yeah.
I said, I must do that. I must do that because men do have emotional sides. Men do have feelings. Men do may not express it as much, but I needed to write it down and show it because, like most men, I do have those feelings. And it was necessary to express them in this case. And I did.
Truly from the heart, actually. Yes, true. Yeah.
That was the intention. That was the intention. I wanted to write it from my heart, and I poured my heart into it. And I wanted to do it in a way that was interesting. It didn't bore you at any time. It didn't become a soap opera. It didn't become a maudlin experience of self-pity or self-congratulation or any of those things. You have to walk a very fine line to tell a story that's true without having without going overboard, without overdoing it. And I believe I largely achieved that. Once I wrote my book, the first person who read it was my wife, Parveen. I presented it to her on her birthday, and she said it was the best birthday present I could ever give out. That was the first draft. Then I had three wise men. Justin Lacuna, who was my boss in Lintas, Andrew Whitehead, who was a BBC journalist who wrote 3 books on my mother, and who wrote a book on my mother, one among 3, and Carlo Pizzati, who's an Italian journalist and writer, who's married to a very well-known Indian poet called Tishani Doshi. And Jayashree probably knows her because she lives in Chennai. Tishani, I don't know if you know her at all. She's a great poet. Anyway, so he was important to me because I wanted to sense how my book would resonate in Italy, because Italy is equally an audience for me. I mean, those are people that have knighted me. They've given me the highest civilian honor, Cavaliere. So Italy is a very important audience, and I wanted to figure how this would play in Italy. So there are certain comments they gave. Most of them loved the book. Certain people had certain observations. I looked at it. Some were right, some were wrong. I took what suited me and didn't. And I revised it for 3 months. In 9 months, I had a book that I felt, now I'm ready to go to publishers.
There are many stories within stories in this book.
Yes, there are.
Which is the favorite part of your book in style and content? Is there any chapter that you would like to revisit and rewrite it again?
This is a bit like asking which of your children do you like, the most. It's never easy. But I tell you, to be honest, since I have been honest in the book, I must be honest with you. The last chapter that I wrote, I could have explored more themes. I could have written more about my wife. I could have expanded those experiences a lot more. But I was constrained by the fact that my book was approaching 300 pages, and I did not want to write a 450-page book. People don't have the attention span and the time to read such tomes, nor do I. So I wanted to keep it readable, and I also wanted to keep it with a nice, large, readable print in the book, not those tiny little fonts that they use. So that was important for me, and to finish the book in a way that was as dramatic as the rest of the book, but without a lot of the scenes. But while no mother will say this is my favorite child, she will have a favorite in her heart. So let me say that writing the chapter on my parents was perhaps my favorite chapter, because they were such extraordinary people and had such extraordinary lives. people who sacrificed everything when they could have got the best jobs in the country for the sake of India's independence, for the welfare of first Kashmiri refugees, then in my mother's case, Tibetan refugees, both of whom had spiritual epiphanies, which I saw, which I was part of. And that was, again, another extraordinary experience to see people transforming and becoming religious figures. My mother discovering Buddhism, my father becoming a New Age philosopher in Italy. And then, of course, I had the advantage of all these wonderful letters that my mother had written, which I've quoted in the book. And letters that bring tears to your eyes. There's an instance, for instance, where when I saw my mother appear suddenly with her head shaven in the maroon robes of a Tibetan nun, I was outraged. I was part of her journey into Buddhism. I was her confidant, and yet she'd become a nun without telling me. I felt totally betrayed. And she knew I was angry. And then she said something to me which just opened a door in my mind. She said, "Who decides when an apple falls to the ground?" And I had a very close relationship with her. And in that silence of communion that followed, I realized what she meant, that it was something, the time had come and she couldn't stop. And I realized that if she talked to me, no matter how close I was to her, she would have had to talk to my brother and my younger sister, and God knows what storms that might have caused. And she didn't want to go through that whole resistance. The only person she told was my father, who in the magnanimity of his spirit, wept but supported her.
Wow.
And that was the kind of emotion that I've been able to share, because she wrote to me after that a beautiful letter where she said, "In your childhood, I gave you and your sister protection. Now, I am the one who needs your protection." And it brought tears to my eyes. It brought tears to my eyes.
Wonderful.
Because it was such a beautiful thing for her to say, and so true. Because she
That's
needed
brilliant.
our understanding, which is also a form of protection.
Wonderful, really.
And
over
reading
to
your
you,
book
Jai.
was like, traveling with you through your journey of life. And now you mentioned that your family, considered spirituality as the key to existence, and along with meditative disciplines and discourses about meaning and spirit. So you have devoted a chapter to your constant spiritual quest also.
Yes,
So
I
what
have.
do you think has led you to this quest of spirituality, and where are you in this journey of spirituality today?
Spirituality has always been a part of my life. I mean, firstly, the ethos in which you grow up in India is a spiritual ethos. Then there was the Sikh tradition of my father. We are all descendants of Guru Nanak. Then there was my mother, who started out as a Christian in her childhood, meditated in her childhood, discovered Buddhism. So there was the Buddhist angle as well. So this inquiring philosophical mind of mine sort of said, it's all very well, Christ said this, Prophet Muhammad said this, Buddha said this, Guru Baba Nanak said this, Lord Krishna said this, but they're all saying very different things. They're all giving us great human values to live by. But somebody's saying there's only one life and you go to heaven and hell. Somebody's saying you're reborn. Somebody's saying there's no soul. Somebody's saying there's free will. Somebody's saying there's destiny. So that spiritual curiosity inside me was always there. And since you're from Chennai, Jashi, you must know Jiddu Krishnamurthy, who lived in Adyar, who was a great philosopher, teacher. And I used to go and listen to Krishnamurthy at the Constitution Club in Delhi when I was a student. When I worked in advertising, he'd come to the JJ School of Arts in Bombay. When I was in California, I met him, had the wonderful interaction with him, which I've written about in my book. And he made me question everything, as he did. That was his way. He broke down all your beliefs and said, now think, what is the truth? So that helped me, in a sense, sweep many things away, but then what is the truth? And he didn't give answers. He said, I destroy all your beliefs, you find the answers. So this quest for answers was with me. I read Deepak Chopra, I read Osho, listened to tapes, all New Age philosophers. And at the end of this journey, I've come to various conclusions of beliefs that resonate for me. What do today I, knowing what I know, coming from the background that I know, that I come from, what have I come to believe? What is the truth? Where did we all come from? Science says we came from one minuscule dot that exploded into a universe that's so immense we can't even imagine how big it is. Where did that energy come from? Something can't come from nothing. So what existed before it? So all these questions I've explored in my book. I've told you the conclusions I've come to and why I've come to, whether I believe in reincarnation, whether I believe in free will or destiny, whether I believe in God, and if so, what is my concept of God? Of course, I believe in God, but your idea of God and mine may not be the same. I define my concept of what God is. So that's part of my journey, that's part of me, and that's a whole chapter that I have written. And I think you'll enjoy reading that because it's based on so much that I've experienced and what actually feels true to me.
It's a very interesting chapter because that's something that you don't expect when you pick the book. And when you
Right.
find a chapter on spirituality, oh, and that's fabulous. You see the other side, of you also in that.
Right.
Coming to the last question, what have you been focusing on during the lockdown period? Do you think the world is never going to be the same again and we will go back to a new normal life? What do you think?
Yes, I do believe that the world has changed irreversibly. I think the world that existed in January 2020 will cease to exist. We are now entering a world where a lot of changes will happen in society, in politics, in our consciousness, in everything. There's no going to go back to the good old days. These are bold new days, difficult new days, because times of transition are always difficult. In this transition, many things are happening. People have a sense of loss, a sense of mourning, as though you've lost a way of life. People have lost relatives. People have lost people they care about. They have a sense of, somewhere of wanting to everything to settle down and get back to normal. But it's what Alvin Toffler called future shock. Like when travelers go to another country, say an American comes to India and he's surrounded by all kinds of strange sounds and smells and tastes and cultures, etc., and he's disorientated. At the end of the day, he goes back to America and says, "Oh God, I'm glad to be home." Future shock is one where the world changes around you and there's nowhere to go back to because the world has changed around you. And that's what happened to us. So I do believe the world has changed forever. And I believe it will change in the end for the better because the arrow of time moves forward and progress and evolution is built into our DNA. But how we use this time of transition also defines who we will be. Seeing the opportunity in every crisis also defines who we are and what we will become. And the minute this pandemic began, I realized that this was the best time possible for me to write this book that I'd been putting off for years. And I sat down and got the clarity of how I was going to write it. And literally from the time the first pandemic began, I started writing with a passion, waking up early in the morning, make myself 2 cups of tea, sitting at my desk, looking out at the palm trees, thinking about what I was going to write, how I was going to write it. And I wrote in a blaze. And my wife Parveen protected me from a lot of the distractions that come into a celebrity's life. And I was literally able to write all day, non-stop for 6 months. Everything else happened in the evening, all the telephone calls or emails, meetings, whatever it was, all in the evenings. So that kind of focus gave me a structure to the day. It helped me get through the pandemic as well, because I had a purpose. I had a sense of mission. I used the opportunity of uninterrupted time to write a book I'd been wanting to write for a long time. So deeply as I feel and have compassion for what people have suffered, what people have lost, whether in terms of health or jobs or livelihoods in this entire pandemic, for me, it was a time when I could certainly write. Of course, in the film business stopped as well. So it meant income ceased in various ways for me as well. All the voice recordings, the voiceovers, the documentary, all that stopped. But I made the most of it and I got a book out of it. And that's what I urge everyone to do, to find the opportunity in the crisis that you will face now and later in life, and see how you can turn that around to do something that enriches you, that helps you evolve and gives you greater fulfillment.
So very well said. Thank you so much. Now, over to Neetu and Radhika.
Thank you, Jayashree. Hello, Mr. Bedi. Just to keep you updated, our chat box is full, and the only words we can see are drop dead gorgeous, looks can kill, the most handsome man, and it's keep on coming and coming. And I think we agree to each word of it.
Well, thank you. Coming from the grand ladies, wonderful ladies of Figgy Flow, I take that as a huge compliment. And of course, everyone likes to be appreciated. So I'm doubly grateful. And doubly grateful is coming from women of your caliber. So I'm more than flattered. I'm overwhelmed. Thank you.
That's so sweet. So, Mr. Bedi, now the fun part of our session. I am Neetu Kohli, Chapter Flow Indore, and with my counterpart and my dear friend Radhika Gupta, Chapter Chair Ludhiana, we are ready to have a not so easy but a super fun one answer question round with you. So, Radhika, will you take on?
Uh-oh.
So, Kabirji, we have been given this responsibility today to go for a rapid fire, to know you better, to learn some secrets, to share a few lighter moments. So
Okay.
if you are ready, can we start?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, me too.
Okay, so we'll be super quick and we'll want you to be very fast. Looking back, anything you would want to do differently in your life?
Many things. You want a super fast answer?
Okay.
Many things. Because, you know,
Okay.
with age, you realize that many things you could have, should have done differently. And you realize that. So there are regrets. But the thing is, don't ever get caught up in regrets. Just push on. Life has to be lived and focus on the best things in life. You can't dwell on the past.
What is the toughest decision you ever had to make?
Oh boy. Oh boy.
You have to be quick.
You know, I'm a philosopher. I think of everything from 20 different angles. I'm very bad at these quick rapid fire things because I don't have instant answers. But I think the most important decision I made in my life was to leave Delhi, because that was the root of everything, and that followed.
Okay, next question. Any one film industry person whose call you always pick?
Any one film industry person whose call I would always take? I think Priyanka Chopra and Salman Khan. These are two people whose call I would always take anytime.
Okay. If you were a woman, who would it be?
if I was a woman, who would it be? There's no way I can say that. There's no way I could say that. It's impossible to answer that question.
Okay, so
Because forget man or woman, every human being is so unique. And my experiences have been so different to most that I can't see anybody who I would say that person would be me. In terms of an actor from Bollywood going to Hollywood, the only person who's close and in some ways ahead of me is Priyanka Chopra. But maybe I should call in Parveen at this time, my wife, because I think she'll help me answer these rapid questions a little better than me.
Yeah, I think I'll be happy. Why don't we call Parveen?
Oh, that would be fun. That would be fun.
Let me call Parveen in.
One question for you and for Parveen now.
Trace!
So we were going to call her.
Here you are.
So Meetu, you take Parveen and I'll take Parveen. Okay?
Come along.
Done.
Come, I need to be rescued by you.
Yeah,
I'm being ambushed by these very smart
That
women
is such a wonderful surprise. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So Meetu, your question.
So Praveen, we are here to grill Mr. Kabir. We have some rapid fire questions and let's three of us do it together. Okay. Next question. One song that describes Kabir.
One song that describes me?
Yeah.
I did my way. Frank Sinatra.
Frank Sinatra, I did it my way.
Great. Radhika.
See, she's quicker than me. I'll be sitting here thinking for the next 5 minutes of all the songs I know in all the different languages. I'm terrible at these rapid fire things. I want to tell you.
You're good.
Great. So what do you think has been your biggest strength? Again, what do you think has been your biggest strength?
Yes.
What has been my biggest strength?
Can I say?
Yeah.
Kindness. Kindness.
Wow.
He is such a kind man. And that's a quality I think that goes very far in life. He's incredibly kind. And I thought I was a good, kind person. Then I met him. He's incredibly kind. So I think that's a great thing.
But apart from kindness, which I thank her for, I think my ability to handle both success and adversity with a certain amount of calmness is a big strength. And that I got from my days when I learned meditation with my mother in Burma and actually became a Buddhist monk for a period of time and was taught by one of the greatest meditation teachers, Mahasi Sayadaw, the man who taught Goenkaji meditation. And Goenkaji came and brought it to India and raised so many consciousnesses through it. So I think that base of meditation gave me that inner calmness where I'm never attached to, extraordinary success, thinking this is me, this is what I'm going to be for the rest of my life. Or this is me down, it's going to be like that for the rest of my life. I just see it as a conditioned state I'm in. And I realize as the Buddha said, that everything is impermanent. So there's a certain equanimity I've developed.
Absolutely. Very comfortable in your skin, which is a lovely quality for a man to have. Very nice quality. Very comfortable in your own skin.
Absolutely. So just a random question for you, Praveen. Any one song which Kabir has ever sung for you or sent you? What? No.
He's not a singer, but he does write me letters now and again, which is lovely.
And I say Balibaletu all the time.
I hope she doesn't say that Balabala means I love you.
I say that in other ways.
Okay.
But
All
no,
right.
letters.
So,
He writes. His writing is his strength. So he's more of the writer than the lovely.
that's so sweet. Radhika, taking the next question.
And I'm not a singer, and nor am I a singer dancer. That's why I had to leave Bollywood, because I realized that if I didn't do singing and dancing, I didn't stand a chance to become a big leading man in Bollywood. And that's one of the reasons I realized I had to take my career abroad. So when the Italian opportunity came, I took it.
You've got such a good voice. You should learn to sing.
That's another issue. Altogether. My voice is used for all kinds of things, but I've never applied it to singing per se.
Yeah.
So one word that you can describe Parveen.
Oh, you better get this right, sweetie.
And even you may.
I'm in trouble no matter what I say.
No, you're not.
The most empowering woman. The most empowering woman I could have.
And Parveen, your turn. Even you have to say.
A gentle giant.
Oh, I like that.
Okay.
Gentle
Okay.
Giant.
Giant.
So, Mr. Bedi, what is that one thing you will not be doing in the next 10 years?
One thing I will not be doing in the next 10 years, retiring.
True.
Good to hear that. Good to hear
Yeah.
that.
So what is your favorite free time activity?
Free time.
What is my favorite?
Free time activity.
Free time. When you're
Free time activity. Well, I just like to sort of chill and read books and watch movies and hang out with friends. And there's nothing specific. I'm just a chiller. Free time means I don't have to focus on anything. Just have a great time.
Okay, lovely.
Because
Okay,
that's when you renew yourself. You know, they say that the arrow that is drawn back the furthest flies the farthest.
Wow.
And so this relaxation that you have is a very important part of withdrawing into yourself so that the best comes out of you, so you can project the most. But once you go back into yourself, how do you do that?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, any particular book you think has impacted your life positively?
Many books. Again, one of those difficult questions, you know, because then I get to historical, psychological, scientific, etc. You know,
But you believe in reading. You'll always say keep the
yes,
mind active.
keep the
Read.
mind
It's like
active. Reading books is like having a conversation with an intelligent mind. And I've read different books for different reasons. All the way, if you want to read a great classic, I'd say read Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. If you want to read a great spy thriller that's true, read The Traitor and the Spy by Ben McIntyre. If you want to read a wonderful general knowledge book about the planet and all things that happened in the most readable way, read about a short history of everything. There are many books that I read, but I read for information, I read for pleasure. And I think Alan Watts' book on Zen also made a deep impact on me, Zen Buddhism. That was also a very important book. So I won't get into lists, but I've given you an idea of the kind of books that I like to read and the kind of books that have impacted me.
So what is the best compliment that you've ever received? Like something which you just like.
Recently, the best compliment I ever received was that somebody said, "Your book moved me to tears," and that touched me because I realized I'd touched somebody to that extent. And right now, my book is like my newborn baby. It's
It's a piece of his heart. It actually is, isn't it? It's really like a piece of his heart. The book is.
So, like a newborn baby and a new mother, that's my whole world right now. And I feel most touched when people say good things about my book. I take it as the greatest personal compliment I could get.
And Amish said to you that you couldn't believe it's your first book.
Yeah.
That was lovely. Amish Tripathi is the author. So
No,
when
no.
other authors,
Alright.
other stalwarts of the industry turn around
Sarah
and give
said
this
that he
wonderful
lived
compliment.
9 lives.
No,
Yeah.
I've received some extraordinary compliments. Veer Sanghvi said it's the best memoir by an Indian celebrity that I've read. Now, Veer is a guy I admire for what he writes and his journalism and the breadth of his knowledge. For him to say that was a huge compliment. So these days I measure my compliments in terms of what's said about my book, not what's said about me.
All right, that's great. Okay, so Mr. Bedi, if you get a chance to make a documentary, what topic would that be?
I would probably make, well, my wife is a great producer. She was one of the producers of Bad Boy Billionaires. And, but if I got a chance to make a documentary with the budgets that I need, I would make a great documentary on my parents.
Wow,
Because that is an
so
extraordinary story that needs to be told and known and seen.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward to it then.
Thank you.
What is the stupidest rumor you've heard about yourself?
Rumor.
Yeah. Stupidest rumor. It was like really funny.
Rumor. Stupidest rumor you ever heard about yourself.
That I was responsible for Parveen Babi's problems. That is the most stupid rumor that I ever heard, because it is not true in any way whatsoever, as you'll discover in my book.
I had one that he had like loads of illegitimate children everywhere. I thought that was very funny.
That's a stupidest rumor. I like
You
that.
wish that's a rumor.
so, Mr. Bedi is not an actor. Which other profession?
You know, before I became an actor, I'd wanted to be an architect.
Yeah.
I'd wanted to be an architect. But given my parents' financial condition, the architectural college was too expensive to enter. And secondly, they told me that even if I found the money, there's no way I'd be able to do architecture and work outside to earn a living, earn my way for it. And so I realized I couldn't do that. And that's why I joined St. Stephen's and made history my subject, because I really wanted to know how we all came here on this planet Earth and what's been our journey until now before I decided what else I wanted to do with my life.
I think that's something,
teach history, it was to discover how we got here.
Guide also,
Absolutely.
Yeah. And one of the ways I used to make money was I used to be a tour guide in Delhi as well, because I was a student of history. So I knew everything about the monuments. So in addition to All India Radio, whenever tourists came in the winter, they would always run short of tour guides. And I would volunteer, and I became one of the guides in the winter. So I would take people around Delhi showing them monuments and paid for my college that way.
Lucky tourists, such a handsome guide they had.
I agree.
Yeah, well, I was very grateful. I was grateful to the generous tourists.
If you ever decide to contact us, we'll get everyone
Sorry?
to Mumbai. As if you ever decide to do that again, we are planning to get a retreat to Mumbai.
Yes, well, I'm a great guide for Delhi, because Delhi's got all the monuments, all the history. I can tell you about the Mughals, I can tell you about the Red Fort, I can tell you about Qutub Minar, I can tell you about Humayun's tomb. I give Parveen a guided tour in Delhi as well. So I'm a great tourist guide for Delhi.
No worries, we can change our plans. We can definitely change our destination too.
Okay, that's great. That's great. We're happy to see you anywhere. Bombay, Delhi, whether it's Ludhiana, Ahmedabad, Mumbai, Chennai, Indore, Kanpur, wherever, I'd be happy to see all of you.
Great, great. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate yourself as an actor?
I rate myself as a 7.
As
7
a
to 8. 7 to 8.
As a father?
As a father, oh boy, that's hard. I'd say a 7 to 8 again, because what's missing is the time I could put into my children because of where I was, because of divorces, and quality time is fine, but quantity counts too. So for the quantity that I couldn't give them, I deduct 2 or 3 points out of 10. The rest, I gave them everything I could.
I've read it all. And as a writer?
As a writer,
10, 10. No, 10. Now let's see what
bless you for saying 10. Bless you for saying 10.
Let Praveen answer that question.
10, 10, all the way.
10.
It's a piece of his heart, and for that, we'll give you a 10. The absolute honesty, candidness, the dedication of writing it. So bravo.
As a writer for this book, I'd give myself a 9, because I think there's still a lot more I have to learn. And of course, everything can be better, given time, given endless improvements. There's no end to perfection. But I think the book that I wrote, I'd give it a 9.
I'd give it a 10.
It's full marks.
We would all give 100 on 10.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bless you for that. Thank you. I'm so touched by what you say. Thank you.
Okay. So I think me too. Last question for you.
Okay. So just a small take on these following trends in the Bollywood film industry. Male item numbers.
I'm sorry?
Male item numbers. Your take on these.
What do you think about the male item numbers?
I think it's time. Why should women do item numbers for men and women, and men not do item numbers for women? I mean, women also should have their place, and in the same way that
The entertainment.
yeah, why not? Why not is the question. Why not? Things move forward.
Okay.
There's item
What do you
numbers with
think
women.
about-
There can be item numbers with men.
Great, great, great. What do you think about the award functions? Your take on those?
I'm very pro award functions because while they may not be perfect, they certainly provide a measure of excellence. They provide a forum for people to meet. They give people a reason to debate the best films of the year. We may not all agree. We may feel that awards should have gone here or there, but the fact is we're talking of the best of the crop. And it's a very important forum. And the Filmfare has been the defining one. The IFAs built another standard of excellence. Then there's Screen Awards. Various awards are there now. But I'm very much in favor of awards because I think people must have a place where they feel rated by their peers. And that's what awards are.
Great. And the last thing, your take on OTT platform.
OTT platforms is the next big revolution in film. We had the age of film, we had the age of television, we had the age of the internet, DVDs, internet. With the coming of the OTT platforms, suddenly the definition of film has changed. There used to be miniseries and other things like HBO, which started even in the 1980s, but HBO never set the general standard. Today, the overall standard has become long-form films, and they've given a platform to the normal films as well. It has suddenly put brilliant actors and directors and creative people who couldn't get jobs earlier to work. Because if you're just making 200 films a year in Bollywood, so how many roles is that? How many directors is that? There are many more people. And all these people, and there's new people coming all the time. So OTT has given this wonderful platform to so much talent and so many new ideas that I celebrate the coming of OTT, and I feel that they are doing the best work in film today by creating ways of exhibiting films that are beyond the traditional exhibition. You're not restricted to just cinema advertising and cinema showing. You can show it across the world instantly, and that is remarkable. And that is truly a revolution. Recently, Salman Khan released a film, Radhe. It had mixed reviews, but the fact is, in going directly to the OTT platforms, he got himself an instant audience that was massive. So whether you're making documentaries, films, long-form films, or even long-running soap operas, OTT has become the platform to go to because it has broken the old prison of theaters to give you a worldwide audience where the theater is in the home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, all good things have to come to an end. Thank you, Kabir.
Radhika, I think when Praveen is here, we should not skip a question. We had a
I'm going to ask
a special question, and we should ask now. Yeah.
Okay, so Praveen, if Mannat is here, I would like her to have spotlight because it's because of her that we were able to connect, and I've got to meet Kabir and Praveen several times.
I was going to thank Radhika and Mannat because Mannat and Amit and Gopiji, the whole Kothari family's life is I regard them as my family, and they're the Ludhiana gang. So I wanted to pay a tribute to them before this program ended, and I'm glad you raised that. And I'd love to see Mannat and hear from her as well.
Mannat, please put on your camera if you're there, and IT team, can you locate her?
If Mannat raises her hand, you can see her on the screen right now.
Monica, I can see.
So by the time Mannat is coming, Radhika, can we finish with the last question?
So my question is, sorry. Okay, wait. Now. spotlight. Okay. So my question,
Hi.
we wanted to know, where did you guys meet, and where did Kabir propose you?
Oh. Is that for me or for him?
Well, let me answer
It will
that.
be the same answer, right?
Same answer.
Yeah, okay, you answer. Go on.
No, please, it's very nice to see you.
Yes, go ahead.
No, I was doing a play in London called the Far Pavilions, where I was performing in the West End, and it was one of those fabulous theatres. And at one of the after parties, I met Parveen, and we had this rather sparkling conversation.
What was I asking you? What is it through you that I asked you the question?
Yeah, she was asking me talking to me about this thing called Holy Island, a little island off the coast of Scotland that I was planning to visit at some point.
Okay.
And she knew all about it. That's really surprised me. So,
And he said, "How do you know?" I said, "I know everything." I just didn't. I know everything. But then I asked him the very first time I met him. I said, "What do you do?" He said, "I'm an actor." I said, "I know that, but like, what do you do?" I don't know what my day is like. And as my meetings start at 11, I finish work about 6:37. What do you do? I think that just absolutely threw him. He says, "I can't believe you said that to me. I can't believe you said that to me."
anyway, we became good friends before we actually started dating.
Yeah.
So then I went to the whole orchestration of a cosmic drama that brought us together even after we seemed to break up, etc., which is all in my book. But eventually, she came to Rome to be with me, and I proposed to her on the historic Spanish steps of Rome on bended knee. But she said yes, but she still took 10 years before she got married to me. So talk about being difficult to convince.
We have another person who wants to say hi. So Mona.
Hi. How are you?
Hello. Hi, Parveen. Hi, Kabir.
Hi.
Good to see you.
It's so nice to see you guys here. I wish there was no corona and we would have you in person.
Oh,
Wonderful, wonderful.
I know. Soon. We'll have to take that trip.
So Monica, you're also on spot. Yeah.
Hi. How lovely to see everybody. I know, Corona times, what can we do?
Hello.
Soon, hopefully.
Hi there.
Hello, how are you?
Good to see you, Monica.
Same here. Looking forward to having you here in Ludhiana soon.
I know. Let this wretched COVID storm pass, then we'll start moving again.
So let's hope all gets well and we see you soon.
Yeah.
Look forward to it.
Yeah.
Yes, we shall see you soon. Thank you, Kabirji and dear Parveen. This is Manat.
Oh, Manat.
Thank you. Before we end this,
Please, yeah.
I can hear you, I can't see you, Manat.
Manat, you need to raise a hand, please.
Okay. So, can you see? I'm wearing a mask right now.
But it's okay, just raise a hand.
that'll make it
Okay.
easy to recognize you.
Okay, absolutely.
Let me just say, please spread the word. Tell people to buy my book because all the bookstores are closed and people have to go for. Oh, look, here's Amit. Amit himself. Hi, Amit.
Hi,
How are you
Parveen.
doing?
Hi.
How lovely to see you. You're the only male face I've seen all evening.
Yeah,
Oh, wonderful.
good to see you guys. Man. It's been long.
Likewise.
Yeah,
Likewise.
and
Oh, hello.
okay.
These are like friends, like family. It's wonderful.
We have Samya also here. Samya will say hi. And
All right.
hi.
So
I
many.
miss everybody.
And Sonia also. Sonia.
Oh,
Hi, Kabirji. Hi, Praveen.
hi.
Lovely seeing you all. Everyone on the road.
Yes.
Hopefully we'll be in person. I mean,
Sure.
Hope to see you all in person. All of
Absolutely.
you in all
Look
your
forward to
cities.
see you.
I hope to be able to see you when times are more normal and I can come and be welcomed by you in your cities. And it'd be wonderful to see you all. And in the meantime, spread the word and hope you enjoyed my book and hope you get other people to enjoy my book.
Thank
Because
you.
Thank you.
Thank you
this
so much.
is what I'm living for right now.
Neetu, can I please
Yeah.
invite you over to say the word of thanks?
Thank you so much, Mr. Bedi. And thank you, Praveena. Your joining was definitely a cherry on the cake. Thank you so much. And it's needless to say that each one present here today is absolutely mesmerized by your enigmatic personality.
Thank you
And
so much,
as
Mitu.
Oscar Wilde says, to live is the rarest thing in the world because most people just exist. So I, on behalf of the entire Flow fraternity, express my profound gratitude to Mr. Bedi for accepting our invitation and walking us through the extraordinary journey of your life. Your charisma is definitely magnetic. And this is what made, for the very first time, 6 chapters of Fiki Flow to come together and do such an event. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You have truly imbibed the feeling that fill your life with experiences, not things. Have stories to tell, not stuff to show. Let us live our life to the fullest so that we don't ever regret the chances we didn't take. I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to Ms. Mannat Kothari, immediate past chair Ludhiana, for connecting us to Mr. Bedi. Our sincere thanks to the media for always highlighting the endeavors and achievements of Flow women. And last but not the least, a big thank you to all Flow women who are here today. Together, we are all invincible. And thank you each one for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank all of you.
Can we just take a moment to take a picture?
Yes.
Yeah, one of you have to add the
Come
spotlight,
forward.
please.
Okay, wait, I'll just do that.
Somebody take the picture.
Yeah,
This is for us, yes.
There you go.
Thank
Click.
you so much.
Is that a click?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Lovely.
They've been formidable. It's been wonderful.
Bye, Parveen.
Thank you for your support. I deeply appreciate
Lovely
it.
to meet you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so
See you
much.
guys
Have a lovely
soon.
evening.
Lovely to
Bye.
meet
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
And thank you. Thank you for all your support and love. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.